Good afternoon and welcome to your homework for this fine April day. What we are going to go over is something that we went over in class today. We're going to talk about reading comprehension, trying to understand expository text. So as we should remember, expository text is essentially text that is explaining something to you. It is factual and it is often peppered with very complicated language, which makes it kind of difficult to understand. But what we're going to do here today is we're going to take a look at some of the stuff that we talked about in class, and we're going to break down one of these paragraphs so that you can practice some of the skills that we talked about in class, such as the question and answer relationships. So as we remember, the first one is right there. So the answer to the questions that we are going to ask ourselves are right there in the text. Number two is think and search. So the answer might be scattered in several sentences. So essentially what we look at for the think and search is that we'll have to read a couple sentences before we'll be able to figure out the answer. I'll demonstrate that a little bit later. Number three, author and you. The student will have to combine what they know and the information the author has given them. All right, so this is one of those situations where you'll try to recall what we talked in class a little bit, and then you're going to apply that knowledge to trying to figure out what the text is saying. So sometimes we have to put the puzzle together with the stuff that we know, along with the stuff with the author gives us. And number four, on my own. This is another example of what you may have learned in class or have read somewhere else. So these are things that you know and strictly you know. So you wouldn't be able to answer the question necessarily based on the text, nor would you even have to read the text to find the information that the question asks you for. So today we're going to focus on right there, think and search, author and you. I'm not going to give you any on your own questions for this one. So if you'll go ahead and open up the Word document that I sent you in your email, so I'll give you a second just to open that up. It's entitled Article 2 Handout. All right, so now that you've got the Article 2 handout opened, I want you to take a look at the setup here. So what you'll see is where the mouse is right now. This is on the left side of the screen, and it's only one paragraph. We're going to actually focus on this paragraph right here. And then there's a right side, a second column, where you can also type independently of the left side of the paragraph. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through this together. So I'm going to first read the paragraph provided here, and we're going to go through and try to figure out what this paragraph is saying. I'm also going to ask some questions throughout this, and we're going to go over how to find those questions or how to figure out how to answer those things. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the vocabulary that you'll find in here. Okay, so after the Revolutionary War, many Americans were skeptical regarding political power. As we had learned, Montesquieu's idea of separation of power deeply informed the writing of the Constitution, particularly Article 2. A supremely powerful president would just be a wolf in sheep's clothing. In other words, the president would be a monarch under a different name. As a result, the framers of the Constitution installed a system of checks and balances. The executive, because of the fear that the United States would fall under the tyranny of another king, became the most checked branch in theory, but more on that in class. Okay, so we talked a little bit about this today in class. We're just going to focus on this one paragraph just so we can get the idea down of how to comprehend this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at some of the vocabulary in here. So, Revolutionary War, obviously we're talking about the American War of Independence from Britain. Hopefully we were paying attention in class today. All right, so many Americans were skeptical regarding political power. Skeptical is a key word here. So, if I were to ask you why, I'll just type that out for you. Why were Americans skeptical regarding political power? You would first have to figure out what the word skeptical meant. So this is one of these questions where there's a little bit of, well, first off, I'll let you think about it for a moment. and then I'll give you the answer. All right, so this one, to understand this question, to answer this question, we have to employ two of these strategies. One is the think and search. So we're going to have to think about what this is asking. So the word skeptical means to be unsure of or to not trust political power. So if you don't trust something, then you are going to be skeptical of it, right? You're not going to give it the benefit of the doubt. So, for example, if I continuously take your lunch money, you would not trust me enough to put your lunch money out on your desk like you would every day. I don't know why anyone would do that, but just for sake of argument, you wouldn't be apt to leave your money out in the desk because you would be skeptical of me. You would fear that I would your come and steal your money. So essentially, what Americans were afraid of is they were afraid that the king. There would be another king. There would be another very powerful person that would come to America and tell everyone what to do. But that's not something that we wanted to do. We fought a war over it. So, as we're looking at this, so we know what skeptical means, right? We're unsure of, not supportive of political power to a full extent, right? We're not really sure that we want someone who's very powerful. All right, so why were Americans so skeptical regarding political power? So for this answer, we would have to read on a little bit in the passage, and we're going to try to get rid of things that are not necessary to figuring out the answer. So as we learned, we'll go to this sentence right here. As we learned, Montesquieu's idea of separation of powers deeply informed the writing of the Constitution, particularly Article 2. All right, so remember we talked about Montesquieu, separation of powers. Is that important? Probably not for this particular answer, though it could help you develop a better answer in the future. So if we remember what Montesquieu said, if we separate powers, no one person gets too powerful, and then we have an efficient government. But we'll talk about that more later. This particular line here isn't necessarily relevant to the question that we're asking here. So, a supremely powerful president would just be a wolf in sheep's clothing. Now, this is an interesting phrase here. A wolf in sheep's clothing. So, let's think about what kind of animal a wolf is, and this will give us clues as to what the part of the answer to this question is. So, supremely powerful, meaning like a king, in that you have the ultimate power. You are the most powerful person in the country, just like I am the supremely powerful person in the classroom. Just kidding. But either way, okay, so a supremely powerful president would be a wolf in sheep's clothing. So wolves, what do we know about wolves? They go around eating sheep. So a wolf would want to dress up in sheep's clothing because sheep are generally friendly, or so we think, and it would go eat other sheep. So what we're thinking is it would be something really bad dressed up like something that's not so bad. So in the context of the presidency, why were Americans so skeptical? I spelled skeptical wrong there. Apologize. Why were Americans so skeptical of political power? Basically, what this sentence is saying is that, and if you go on to the next sentence, in other words, the president would be a monarch under a different name. So if you look at this, a monarch under a different name, essentially, now we need to figure out what monarch means. Okay, so monarch, what are we afraid of here? We're afraid of kings and queens, right? So a king and a queen is a monarch. So we would not want a monarch under a different name. So essentially, a monarch under a different name would be a supremely powerful president. So it would be the same thing as a king. We would just call it something different. So why were we so skeptical of political power? So we're going to have to use a little bit of what we know. So we know, why did we fight the revolution? The king was taxing us without consent. The king was being a tyrant, which means exercising arbitrary power, exercising power without the consent of the people. So essentially, an example of that would be if I were to give you an F for no reason, that would be arbitrary, tyrannical power, right? So we don't want that. So essentially, we got rid of a king. Why would we want a new king? So why don't you go ahead and answer that question, and we'll move on to the next one in just a moment.